Chapter 10 Journey of 1,000 Miles. Jack couldn't speak. Our passports, said Annie. They got destroyed in a fire on the other side of the great bridge. The samurai narrowed his eyes. Your passports burned, he said. Why were you on the other side of the great bridge? We were with Master Basho, said Jack. Master Basho, said the samurai. Yes, said Annie. We are students of his. Ah, the samurai's expression brightened. So you study poetry with Master Basho? Yes, said Annie. Would you like to hear some poems? Oh no, thought Jack. Not again. Yes, please, said the samurai. No problem. Annie thought for a moment and then said, Here's a simple little poem. She recited, Rain falls outside, but the tiny cricket on the hearth is dry tonight. The samurai nodded. He said, Yes, very simple, but very lovely. Thank you, said Annie. The man turned to Jack. Jack could hardly breathe. His mind was blank. He looked to Annie for help, but Annie just smiled, waiting to hear his poem. Jack cleared his throat. He tried to stay calm. He closed his eyes and let his mind roam over their visit to Japan. He opened his eyes. He looked up at the cloudless sky and said, The sun is shining, the day is hot, but moonlight and cool breezes still fill my heart, left over from last night. Whoa, whispered Annie. Good. Yes, very good, said the samurai. He looked at the sky. The moonlight, the cool breeze, he mused, left over from last night. Very good. Master Basho has taught you well. The samurai strolled away, shaking his head and murmuring to himself. He let out a happy laugh as if delighted with the day. Jack couldn't believe it. They were free. Hurry, let's go, he said, before someone else sees us. Jack and Annie ran to the rope ladder and started up. As soon as they climbed inside the treehouse, Jack grabbed the Pennsylvania book. He found a picture of the Frog Creek woods. As the famous samurai once said, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, said Jack. Or one sentence, said Annie. Right, said Jack. He pointed at the picture. I wish we could go home. Annie gasped. Wait a minute, she said. We forgot our mission. What? Said Jack. But the wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. The early morning air was cold. Jack and Annie were back in Frog Creek wearing their own clothes. Jack's burlap bag was a backpack again. He looked inside to make sure the wand of Dianthus was there. It was, and Basho's frog poem was there too. I can't believe it, said Annie. We didn't look for a secret of happiness for Merlin. How could we forget that? Oh man, said Jack. We were so busy worrying about the samurai and putting out the fire that we forgot our mission. What will Morgan say, said Annie. We've never forgotten a mission before. And this was the most important we've ever had, to help save Merlin. Annie was near tears. Wait, calm down, said Jack. Let's think a minute. Maybe we actually found a secret of happiness. Maybe we just don't know we found it. You mean like we were extra happy at any time? Asked Annie. Yeah, sort of, said Jack. Were we? I don't know, were you? Said Annie. I think a few times, said Jack. Like when? Said Annie. Like when we were crossing the great bridge with Basho. I felt sort of happy then, said Jack. Me too, said Annie. And I was pretty happy eating sushi. Yeah, but I got scared when I saw the samurai watching me, said Jack. What about the sumo wrestling match? Asked Annie. That was fun, said Jack. But I don't know it really made me happy. Riding the dragon and putting out the fire, said Annie. That was great, said Jack. but I was too worried about saving the city to be happy. Making up poems for the samurai, said Annie. Too nervous, said Jack. Well, when were you purely happy, said Annie. I think it was when. Jack stopped. He felt silly saying what he was about to say. Go ahead, said Annie. I think it was when I was lying on the mat in Bashow's house, said Jack, and I touched that little patch of moonlight on the floor, and I listened to the banana leaves in the wind. Oh, yes, said Annie, before we fell asleep, and I heard the cricket, and I felt like I was a cricket myself going to sleep in a cozy place. Yeah, like that, said Jack. It's like what Basho said about finding beauty in the small things of nature, said Annie. Like his poem about that frog splashing in the water. I think that's it, said Jack. A secret of happiness is paying really close attention to the small things in nature. Wow, said Annie. I think that's a great secret to share with Merlin. It is, said Jack. And Bashow's poem will help Merlin understand. Right, said Annie. Let's go, said Jack. Annie climbed down the rope ladder. Jack put his pack on his back and followed her. As Jack and Annie started through the chilly woods together, Jack noticed things he hadn't seen before. He saw tiny blue wildflowers sprouting up from the winter-weary ground. He saw fresh anthills in the dirt. He saw leaf buds on twigs and green moss on a rock, bright in the March sunlight. I feel like I'm seeing spring for the first time, said Jack. Me too, said Annie. Not just for the first time this year, said Jack, but for the first time in my whole life. Me too, said Annie. Jack felt happy, really happy, as he and Annie headed for home in the sparkling morning light.